The music was still playing when my mother said it, soft, smiling, like she was sharing good news. "We're passing the car his parents gave you over to your sister." She said it at my wedding table, in front of guests, in front of family, in front of cameras. My dress still felt heavy on my shoulders. The room still smelled like flowers and champagne. I didn't understand at first, not because the words were unclear, but because of where we were. My sister laughed immediately. "Relax," she said, waving her hand. "It's just a car. Just a car." Something my husband's parents had given us quietly. Something meant for our start. Something she'd apparently already decided belonged to her. I looked around. Faces froze mid-smile. Someone pretended to sip their drink. Someone else stared very hard at the centerpiece. No one said a word. That silence felt familiar. I didn't speak either. I turned slightly, just enough to look at my husband. He hadn't smiled. He hadn't reacted. He was watching them, really watching, the way someone does when they're seeing a pattern for the first time. My mother's smile stayed fixed. My sister leaned back, satisfied. They thought this was normal. They thought this day, of all days, was still theirs to control. My husband finally set his glass down, slowly, carefully, and then he spoke. My husband didn't raise his voice. He didn't look angry. That's what made it unsettling. He looked curious, like someone watching a door close that he didn't realize had been open. He glanced at me first, just a second, not asking permission, not checking for approval, checking alignment. I gave the smallest nod, not agreement, trust. He turned back to them. "Just a car," he repeated. My sister shrugged, still smiling. "Yes," she said. "You're acting like we took something important." The word we hung in the air. My mother leaned forward, eager to smooth things over. "It's practical," she said. "Your sister needs it more right now." Needs. At my wedding. My husband rested his hands on the table, still calm, still polite. But something in the room shifted. People felt it before they understood it. He didn't argue. He didn't defend me. He asked one question. "Do you know who paid for the insurance?" The smile on my mother's face twitched. My sister opened her mouth, then closed it. Someone nearby stopped chewing. My husband nodded slowly, like he'd expected that reaction. He followed with another question. "And the registration?" Silence. The kind that presses on your ears. My sister laughed again, but this time it sounded thin. "Why does that matter?" she asked. My husband leaned back. "Because," he said evenly, "you don't give away something you don't maintain." No one interrupted him. No one rushed to rescue the moment. And for the first time that day, I realized this wasn't about the car. It was about who thought they still had permission to take from us. My husband hadn't grown up like this. He wasn't used to jokes that cut or smiles that took. He'd noticed things early on, the way my mother spoke for me, the way my sister decided things out loud and waited for no one to disagree. He used to ask me about it, gently. I always said the same thing. That's just how they are. He didn't argue, but he watched. He noticed who volunteered me, who took credit, who laughed when I stayed quiet. And today, of all days, they'd done it again, in front of witnesses. My mother leaned toward him now, tone soft. "We're family," she said. "We share." My husband nodded once. "Yes," he said, "but sharing goes both ways." My sister rolled her eyes. "You're making this weird," she said. "Weird. That's the word people use when a pattern is finally named." He looked at her calmly. "Do you know where the title is?" he asked. She blinked. "What?" "The car," he said. "Do you know whose name is on it?" The air shifted. Someone at the next table stopped laughing. A fork clinked too loudly. My sister glanced at my mother. My mother didn't answer, because they both knew, and my husband knew they knew. That was the moment I felt it. Not fear, relief. Because whatever came next wouldn't come from me, and that made all the difference. "My name is Elena," I was 29 years old on my wedding day, old enough to know when something is a joke, old enough to know when it's controlled dressed as humor. I'd spent most of my life staying quiet because it kept things peaceful. If my sister wanted something, it was easier to step aside. If my mother decided something, it was easier not to question it. That habit followed me into adulthood, into holidays, into conversations, into moments that should have belonged to me, even this one. But sitting there in white lace and borrowed calm, I realized something had changed. I wasn't alone anymore. I wasn't the only one seeing it. My husband didn't grow up negotiating his place at the table. He didn't confuse silence with respect. So when my family crossed that line, he didn't rush to fix it. He slowed it down. He asked questions, the kind that make people uncomfortable because they don't come with emotion. They come with facts. I'd spent years explaining my family to others. That day, I watched someone finally understand them without my help. And once that happens, you can't go back to pretending. My husband finally spoke again. Not louder, not sharper, quieter. That car isn't a family decision, he said. It was a gift. My mother's smile tightened. Well, gifts can be shared, she replied quickly, especially when one child needs it more. Needs. My sister nodded, relieved to have backup. Exactly, she said. You don't even drive that much. I felt the old instinct rise, the urge to explain, to justify, but my husband raised a finger slightly, not at them, at the moment. Before we go any further, he said, there's something we should clear up. The room leaned in without realizing it. He turned to my sister, whose name is on the insurance. She laughed again, too fast. Why are you obsessed with paperwork? She asked. He didn't answer that. He turned to my mother instead. And who's been paying it for the last 2 years? Silence. Not awkward. Exposed. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it. Someone at the table shifted in their seat. Another guest suddenly found their phone very interesting. My husband nodded slowly. Right, he said. Then he said the sentence that changed the air. You don't pass on something that was never yours to give. No one laughed. No one interrupted. My sister's face lost color, and my mother's smile finally disappeared, because for the first time, they weren't being challenged emotionally. They were being corrected. My husband didn't rush. He let the silence do the work first. Then he said it, because the car isn't in your name. My sister frowned. My mother's head tilted slightly, like she was recalculating. He continued, voice even. It's in ours. That landed differently. My sister laughed again, but it cracked halfway through. Okay. And, she said, it's still just a car. My husband nodded. Yes, he said. And it's also registered, insured, and maintained by us. No emotion, no accusation, just facts. My mother finally spoke. You're making this complicated, she said sharply. This is a wedding. Let's not ruin it. Ruin. That word again. The room had gone very still now. No one was pretending anymore. My husband looked around the table once, then back at them. We didn't bring this up, he said. You did. That was when my sister shifted in her chair. She wasn't smiling anymore. She was watching my husband closely now, like someone realizing they'd underestimated the wrong person. He wasn't reacting. He was deciding, and that made her nervous. Because people who react can be managed. People who decide cannot. My mother leaned back in her chair, slowly, like she was buying time. We can talk about this later, she said. Today isn't the day. My husband nodded once. You're right, he said. Today isn't the day. My sister relaxed a little at that. She thought it meant the moment had passed. She was wrong. He reached into his jacket pocket. Not dramatically. Not for attention. Just a small movement that made everyone watch. He pulled out his phone, glanced at the screen, then looked up. Out of curiosity, he said, did either of you tell the dealership about this plan? My mother stiffened. The dealership? She repeated. Yes, he said, because they called this morning. That got attention. My sister sat up straight. "Why would they call you?" she asked. My husband didn't answer right away. He unlocked his phone, scrolled once, then placed it face down on the table. "They wanted to confirm something," he said calmly, before making changes. No one spoke. The music in the background suddenly felt too loud. My mother's hands folded together tight. "What changes?" she asked. My husband met her eyes. "The kind you can't make," he said, "without permission." My sister swallowed, and for the first time that day, I saw it. Not confidence, not arrogance, fear, because whatever they thought was just a car was starting to look like something they'd touched without understanding who actually owned it. My husband finally picked up his phone, not to show them, just to confirm something for himself. "The dealership wanted to know," he said, "if the request came from the owner or from someone assuming they were." My mother's face went pale, not dramatic, not shocked, blank. My sister shook her head. "You're exaggerating," she said. "They wouldn't call you over something small." My husband looked at her. "They didn't," he said. "They called because you asked for a transfer." The word transfer landed hard. Someone across the table inhaled sharply. My mother's voice dropped. "You told them we were handling it," she said to my sister. My sister's mouth opened, closed, then opened again. "I thought," she started. "Thought." That's what this had always been built on. Assumption, comfort, the belief that no one would ever question them. My husband leaned forward slightly. "They asked for authorization," he said. "Proof of ownership." He paused. "You didn't have it." Silence. Not a single person moved. My sister stared at the table like it had betrayed her. My mother finally spoke, very carefully. "And what did you tell them?" My husband didn't smile. "I told them," he said, "not to touch the car." That's when it happened. My sister froze completely, because in that moment, she understood something she never had before. This wasn't about winning. It was about permission, and she'd never actually had it. My mother straightened her back. That was always her signal. When charm failed, she switched to authority. "This conversation is over," she said. Her voice was calm, practiced. The voice she used when she expected obedience. She looked at me. "Elena, tell him to stop," she said. "Today is about family." Family. The words sounded different now. I didn't answer. My husband did. "We are family," he said. "That's why we don't take from each other without consent." My mother's jaw tightened. She turned to him fully now. "You're new here," she said sharply. "You don't understand how things work." He nodded. "You're right," he said. "I understand how ownership works." That stopped her. My sister finally spoke again, voice low. "Mom," she said, "maybe we should drop it." Drop it. That was new. My mother glanced at her, surprised. The power wasn't where it usually sat. She turned back to my husband. "So what are you saying?" she asked. "Are you trying to embarrass us?" "No," he said. "I'm preventing a mistake." He paused, then added, "one that would have had legal consequences." The word legal hung in the air. Heavy, final. My mother's face went blank again. Not angry, not offended, cornered. Because for the first time, her authority didn't reach the edge of the table. And she knew it. No one argued after that. Not my mother. Not my sister. They didn't apologize either. They just stopped. The music kept playing. Plates were cleared. Guests slowly returned to talking, but something had changed. My mother didn't bring it up again. She avoided my husband's eyes. My sister stayed quiet for the rest of the night, smiling only when someone spoke directly to her. The car was never mentioned. Not that day. Not after. Because it didn't need to be. A week later, the dealership emailed us. Confirmation. No changes made. No requests honored. Everything stayed exactly where it belonged. My husband never gloated. Never explained. He didn't need to. Boundaries don't announce themselves. They simply exist. On our honeymoon, I asked him why he stayed so calm. He smiled and said, "Because people only take what you let them." That was it. No speeches. No drama. Just clarity. My family still invites us to things. They're careful now. Polite. Measured. And my sister never jokes about just a car anymore, because she learned something that day. It was never about the car. It was about who thought they could decide for us, and who finally couldn't.